Morning, everyone. We'll call our meeting to order. First item we have is Senator Hawk has some pages he'd like to introduce.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could I have them stand, please? And I'd like to introduce my pages from Manhattan. They were elementary students at Woodrow Wilson Elementary School with their teacher Kelly Carmody last year, and now they're middle school students. We have Bailey Bush, wave, Lucy Martini, and Natalie Buffington. And and they have a supervisor here. There's Mom, Mrs. Martini's here. And would like the group to know that they were the State National History Day winners last year. And how appropriate that the Historical Society would be here to hear that. And to let you all know, they were also national winners, and their project is on display at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. It was on Underground Railroad, and they're very proud of that, and justly should be. So could you give them another round of applause for their national? They did lose the lottery, though, and they drew me today for their senator. But we're going to get through it. So welcome to the Kansas Senate and to Ways and Means. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next, we'll have bill introductions. Senator Kershing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Number is RS 2961, and it deals with the Wildlife and Parks relationship with the Department of Commerce.
We have a motion by Senator Kershing. We have a second. Senator Clays. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Anyone else? I have one. It's 22 RS 2819. Has to do with sales tax on tangible personal property. I got a second by Senator Clays. Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item we have is subcommittee reports. The first one we'll have is Senator Clays will have a subcommittee report on Legislative Coordinating Council, the Legislature, Legislative Research Department, Legislative Division of Post Audit, Office of Reviser of Statutes, and Office of the Governor. Senator Clays.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For expediency and because there were no changes by the subcommittee, I will do FY 22 and 23 and stand for questions at the conclusion of each budget in its entirety. We will start out with the Legislative Coordinating Council. The agency was at 779,439. The governor's rec is at 779,439. They are still at 8 FTEs. There is no change there in 22. And then going into 23, there's a reduction, a small reduction. That is due to a lack of reappropriated funds, partially offset by increases in salaries and wages, fringe benefit expenditures. They're at 752,441. The governor concurred with that recommendation, and the subcommittee did as well. And with that, I will stand for questions on the FY 22 and 23 budget for the Legislative Coordinating Council.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will move on to the legislature budget. Give you a moment to flip the pages. We'll start out with FY 22. The agency is at 24,337. The governor concurred with that recommendation. The subcommittee concurred with the governor. They are at 50 FTEs. There is no change. We'll move to 23, where there is a reduction to 23,172,441. The governor concurred with that, still remaining at 50 FTEs. The majority of the decrease year over year is due to a lack of reappropriated funds, offset by some increases in salaries and fringe benefit expenditures. And with that, I would stand for questions on the 22 and 23 budget for the legislature.
Any questions on the legislature budget? Bless you. Seeing none. Oh, Senator McGinn.
I just have a question, excuse me, a question on the FTEs. 50, is that, I mean, I know what we see around here on the 5th floor. Who else does that include? Does that Is that revisers? That's a different budget. Is that people that work during session? Just trying to understand what that 50 includes.
They're KLOIS staff, and then the House and Senate chamber staff. The session staff is temporary, so it's not included in there.
What'd you say, KD?
KLOIS.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none?
Moving on. All right, we'll move on to the Legislative Research Department next. I'll give you a moment to flip to the appropriate pages. If I can find the appropriate pages. All right, Legislative Research Department FY22, they're at 4.8 million. The governor concurred, the subcommittee concurred. They are still at 40 FTEs, no change. We'll move to 23. They're at 4.6 million. Still 40 FTEs. Governor concurred with that recommendation. Subcommittee concurred with the governor. There is a minor decrease attributable to a lack of reappropriated funds. And with that, I would stand for questions on the Legislative Research Department FY22 and 23 budget.
Questions? Seeing none, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll move to the Legislative Division of Post Audit and give you a moment to get to the correct pages. Starting off in FY22, we're at 3.5 million. Governor concurred, subcommittee concurred, 27 FTEs, remains unchanged. Moving into 23, 3.5 million roughly with 27 FTEs. Governor concurred, subcommittee concurred. Minor decrease also due to lack of reappropriated funds. And with that, I would stand for questions on the Legislative Division of Post Audit budget for FY22 and 23.
Questions? Seeing none, please proceed.
We'll move to the Office of the Reviser of Statutes. For FY22, we're at 4.2 million. Governor concurred, 31.5 FTEs, unchanged. And moving to FY23, 4.1 million. Governor concurred, 31.5 FTEs, unchanged. Again, decrease attributable to some reductions in contractual services and then some minor increases in salaries and wage fringe benefit expenditures, as you've seen in previous budgets. And with that, I would stand for questions on the Office of the Reviser of Statutes.
Questions? Seeing none, please proceed.
And finally, the Office of the Governor. Starting out in FY22 at 50 million. 8.5 is SGF. It's an increase of 12.4 million above the 22 approved. The agency's revised estimate includes expenditures of 7 million in federal CRF funds. And then, and that is largely from the CARES Act. The agency was allocated a total of 1 billion in discretionary monies from the CRF. That needed to be used for COVID-19 and the public health emergency. The agency's revised estimate includes 3.5 million from the State Fiscal Recovery Fund, and that is provided in the American Rescue Plan Act. These expenditures are for operating costs for the Office of Recovery in FY22. They also include $8 million for outside auditors and accountants for the distribution of funding and expenditures. The agency's revised estimate also includes a decrease of $16,000 in coronavirus emergency supplemental funding. And then the governor's grant office anticipates an increase of about $700,000 in federal Family Violence Prevention and Services Act grant expenditures in '22. That's a federal program that prevents incidents of family violence, domestic violence, et cetera. The other adjustments include some minor increases due to operating expenditures in the Office of the Governor and Lieutenant Governor, which also has a corresponding decrease in special revenue funds of about $40,000. The governor, of course, concurred with her budget, and the subcommittee concurred with the governor in FY22. I'll stand for questions on 22 since this is a relatively lengthy budget.
Questions on 22? Seeing none, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll move to 23. The governor's budget is at $56 million. $8.2 million is SGF, which remains largely unchanged from the SGF. There is an increase of $6 million above the 22 revised estimate. The ARPA was enacted on March 11th, 21, and provides $1.9 trillion in federal spending to assist in the response and recovery from COVID-19. There are several pieces of legislation that offered funds that you can read about in the narrative. The agency is estimating $19.6 million in ARPA for 2023. It's an increase of 16 above the 22 revised. Additionally, the agency estimates a decrease in the Victims of Crime Act Victim Assistance Grant expenditures. There's also a decrease in the Family Violence Prevention Services Act expenditures and expenditures for Project Safe Neighborhoods. The agency requests an additional adjustment, including a decrease of $322,000 in SGF. The agency decreased the request for SGF monies from those grants due to a lack of reappropriated funding for 23. In addition to the reduction in SGF, the agency estimates a decrease of $340,000 in other expenditures for 23. The governor, of course, concurred with her budget, and the subcommittee concurred with the governor. And with that, I would stand for questions on FY23.
Questions on 23? Seeing none, Senator Clays, if you'd like to make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will move the FY22 and 23 budgets for the Legislative Coordinating Council, the Legislature, the Legislative Research Department, the Legislative Division of Post Audit, the Office of the Reviser of Statutes, and the Office of the Governor.
We have a second by Senator Hawk. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Senator Clays. Next, we'll have the Higher Ed Subcommittee. And first, we'll have the State Historical Society. Start on agency's 2022 budget. The agency estimates $7.9 million, including $4.3 million SGF. The revised estimate is an all funds increase of $879,487 and an SGF decrease of $6,497 from the 2022 approved amount. The revised estimates include capital improvement expenditures of $1.1 million, including $450,000 SGF. The estimate is an all funds increase of $457,500 above the fiscal year 2022 approved amount. The SGF amount is the same as the SGF amount in the approved budget. The all funds increase is due to an increase in private gifts and grants made to the agency for its capital improvement projects, including $450,000 for repairs and replacements of the concrete walkways outside the Kansas Museum of History and replacement of the lobby floor. The governor concurred with the recommendations, and the subcommittee also concurred, and the employees was, FTE positions was 85.5. I will go on to the 2023. The agency request 2023 expenditures of $7.3 million, including 4.5 SGF. This is an all funds decrease of $586,532 and an SGF increase of $264,313 from the 2022 revised estimates. This includes an enhancement request of $453,867, all SGF, for operations in support of the new exhibits at the Kansas Museum of History. The decrease in expenditures is related to a reduced collection of fees due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the federal grants. The request includes capital improvement expenditures of $412,800, including $250,000 from SGF for 23. This is an all funds decrease of $644,700 and an SGF decrease of $200,000. And it's a revised capital improvements estimates. The decrease is due to the completion of the multiple projects in fiscal 2022, including the repairs to the Kansas Museum of History. They remain with 85 and a half FTEs. The governor recommended expenditures of $7.5 million, including 4.7 SGF. This is an SGF increase of $125,000 above the agency's request. The recommendation includes capital improvement expenditures of $537,800, including $375,000 SGF. This is an SGF increase of $125,000 above the agency's 2023 request. The increase is due to the governor's recommendation that the annual SGF support the rehabilitation and repairs at the state historical sites by $125,000 for fiscal year 23. And she recommended 85 FTEs, and the subcommittee concurred with the governor in 2023. Are there questions on 2022 or 2023? Seeing none, we will move on to the state library. And actually, I think on these beings, no, I'll just go ahead and I'll make a motion that we accept the subcommittee's report, second by Senator Clays. Is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll move on to the state library. The agency estimates total expenditures of $7.9 million, including $4.3 million SGF for 2022. The revised estimate is an all funds increase of $879,487 and an SGF decrease of $6,497 from the approved amount. The revised estimates include capital improvement expenditures of $1.1 million, including $450,000 SGF. The revised estimates is an all funds increase of $457,500 above the 2022 approved amount. The SGF amount is the same. Oh,
Because I got it in there twice myself.
sorry. Guess I have two of these. I've got it. Okay. Sorry, I had the wrong sheet. Okay, State Library has 30.5 FTEs. The agency requests $8.5 million, including $4 million SGF for fiscal year 2022, and all funds increase of $2.6 million, with a SGF decrease of $3,062 from the amount approved by the 2021 legislature. Significant items in the agency's estimates include the following: the American Rescue Plan The ARPA appropriations of $2.6 million in additional funding for libraries through the Federal Library Services and Technology Act. This funding has primarily been awarded to libraries across the state. The revised estimate includes 30.5 FTE positions, which is a half a FTE position below the number approved in 2021. The governor concurred with the recommendations for 22, and the subcommittee concurred with the governors. In 2023, the agency requests $5.9 million, including $4 million SGF expenditures. For 2023, this is an all funds decrease of $2.6 million and an SGF decrease of $24,529, and below the revised estimate. Significant items in the agency's request include the following. The end of the ARPA COVID funding, the agency requests decrease from 22 to 23, primarily due to the anticipated end of the one-time funding received under the ARPA for the COVID-19 expenditures. The majority of the funding was through the LSTA fund and was distributed to public libraries, $2.1 million. The remainder was expended for access to the Tumble Books database for 3 years. The landing building rent for fiscal year 2022 approved amount included $30,000 all SGF for moving and remodeling the state library offices. In October 2021, reference service staff moved the office space in the Landon State Office Building. The agency anticipates rent expenditures totaling $33,000. This for 2023 for the staff's office space. The revised estimate includes 29.5 FTE positions for 2023, which is 1 FTE position below the 22 estimates. Are there questions on 20 and 22 state library? Seeing none, I make a motion we approve the subcommittee's request, second by Senator Clays. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll move on to the General Government Subcommittee. And the first one we have is a Board of Indigence Defense Services. The agency requests a revised estimate of $43.7 million, including $43.1 million SGF for 2022. This is an all funds decrease of $48,863 and an SGF decrease of $51,612 below the 2022 approved amount. The agency has decreased expenditures for salaries and wages of $2.5 million due to the vacant positions, which is partially offset by an increase in expenditures for contractual services of $2.1 million, primarily in reapportioned assigned council funding and capital outlay of $278,899 for new equipment and furnishings to fill current vacant positions. The agency estimates also includes 244.3 FTE positions, which is 0.03 FTE positions below the approved amount. The governor's recommendation. The governor recommends expenditures of $39.1 million, including $38.5 million SGF in 2022. This is an SGF decrease of $4.6 million below the agency's 2022 revised estimates. The decrease is attributed to fall assignment council caseload adjustments. The recommendation includes 244.3 positions, which is the same as the agency's 2022 revised estimates. The subcommittee concurs with the governor's recommendation for 2022. Are there any questions on 22? Senator Alley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The question that I had was, last year, I believe we went from $80 to $100, and that was on the hourly rate. Is that hourly rate 2,080 hours a year, or is that just the hours that they expend?
Senator Alley, whenever the assigned counsel accepts the case, that's when it starts.
So if I understand what you said, was that just for the hours that they are on the time? It's not that's not staff, that's not the staff hours. That the 11 people that they said they had on staff, that's not their pay scale. That's the ones that they hire out of office.
Correct, it's assigned counsel.
Thank you very much.
Other questions? Seeing none, we'll move to 2023. The agency requests $59.1 million, including $58.5 million SGF. This is an all funds increase of $15.4 million and an SGF increase of $15.4 million above the 2022 revised estimates. The agency requests include 344.3 FTE positions, which is an increase of 100 FTE positions above the 22 revised estimates. Significant items in the agency request include the following: enhanced recruitment and retention plan. The agency requests $4.1 million SGF to address recruitment and retention issues by pay scale adjustments and establishment of an internal training program for public defenders and assigned counsel. An enhanced ethical caseload staffing and support plan. The agency requests $8.1 million SGF to support 88 FTE positions to address chronic attorney caseload issues and insufficient support staffing in its public defender offices. Enhancement expansion of public defender offices. The agency requests $1.2 million SGF to establish a public defender office and 12 FTE positions in the 7th Judicial District in Douglas County. Enhancement infrastructure upgrades. The agency requests $526,512 SGF for the anticipated ongoing maintenance for a new case management system, additional death penalty defense unit office space, additional cost for Westlaw upgrades, and new licensing for video evidence software. Enhancement assigned counsel rate increase. The agency requests $3.6 million SGF to fund assigned counsel rates increased up to 120 per hour. The governor's recommendation. The governor recommends expenditures of $46.3 million, including $45.7 million SGF for 2023. This is an SGF decrease of $12.7 million below the agency's fiscal 2023 request. The decrease is primarily due to the governor not recommending the agency's enhancement requests for caseload staffing and expansion of public defenders' offices. There is also a decrease due to the assigned counsel caseload adjustment. This is particularly offset by partial funding for the agency's enhancement request for infrastructure upgrades and recruitment and retention. The recommendation includes 244.3 FTE positions, which is 100 FTE positions below the agency's 2023 request. This is due to the governor's not recommending the agency's enhancement request for ethical caseload staffing and the expansion of the public defender's offices. The Senate Subcommittee recommendations concurs with the governor's recommendations for 2023 with the following recommendation. The subcommittee recommends the committee review the agency's enhancement requests related to pay raises and internal training program and an increase in FTE positions. So the recommendation is that the whole committee look at that when we start into the budget. Senator McGinn.
I just need to understand exactly when that is. Review, so today we're going to review it, or are we going to find a time on the calendar that we're going to review it?
I thought when we start working the budget as the committee, that maybe we would review it at that time, but if you just soon do it today, we can do it today. I think there's
No, I
time.
think there needs to be a prepared date ahead of time, but if you did it the day that you package the budget, there's not going to be much time for that because you're packaging all the other items.
So you're suggesting maybe we do it at a separate time?
Seeing that once we get past some of these subcommittees and the room clears up again, that you just make that an agenda item for a day.
Everyone okay with that? Senator Petty.
Thank you. And I was trying to remember if it was last year or if it was prior to that we did something similar, and we had a spreadsheet so that we could actually look at those specific items like this that had some suggestions of enhancement. And it did go fast, but it actually was a little clearer than going through packet.
We can do that if we have more than this one, we can do that. I think that would be very helpful. Everyone okay with that? So we'll plan on having a separate meeting on this, and if we have more items, we will put them on the list and easier spreadsheet. Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, I would make a motion that we accept the recommendations for the Ward of Indigence Defense for 22 and 23, and second by Senator Clays. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next we will have the Kansas Human Rights Commission. The agency estimates revised operating expenditures of $1.5 million, all from SGF. This is an all-funds decrease of $21,638 and an SGF decrease of $1,587 below the 2022 approved amount. The agency's decrease is estimate for food for the employment law seminar by $15,596. This is an amount was decreased because the agency has not held the in-person seminar due to the COVID-19 pandemic in 2022. The agency increased its estimate for staffing agency services by $14,839 to cover 3 vacancies in its administration staff for a portion of the 2022 fiscal year. The agency increased its estimates for employee benefits by $11,532 to cover increased contributions for unemployment compensation and health insurance costs. The agency decreased its estimate for cybersecurity service desk users charge and network user charges by a combined amount of $11,676. The governor concurs with the revised estimates, and the FTEs remained at 23, and the Senate subcommittee concurred with the governors. Any questions for 2022? Seeing none, we'll move to 2023. The agency requests operating expenditures of $1.5 million, including $1 million SGF for fiscal year 2023. This is an all funds decrease of $27,241 and an SGF decrease of $43,737 below the 22 revised estimates. Both decreases are due to the completion of the database access project for fiscal year '22, decreasing expenditures for 2023. This decrease is partially offset by increased expenditures for food. Food expenditures include catering for the agency's public information programs, which have been held virtually since the calendar year 2020 due to COVID-19. The governor concurs with the agency's request, and the Senate subcommittee concurs with the governor's. Are there any questions on 22 or 23? Seeing none, I make a motion we accept the subcommittee's recommendation. Second by Senator Clays. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll move on to the Office of Administrative Hearings. The agency estimates revised operating expenditures of $1.5 million, all from the Administrative Hearings Office Fund in fiscal year 2022. This is an increase of $135,128 above the amount approved by the 2021 legislature. The increase is primarily due to increased expenditures for salaries, which increased by $96,084. The increase includes salary increases for staff and hiring a part-time temporary administrative law judge. The increase is also due to increased estimates for employee training expenditures of $28,324. The governor concurs, the Senate subcommittee concurs with the governor for 2022. Are there questions in 2022? Senator Hawk.
Just a quick question, probably for staff. What is the other funds that funds this budget? I assume they charge a fee to provide this service to the agencies, but I just wasn't clear about that. There's no state general fund money and Office of Administrative Hearings?
There are 6 agencies that primarily use this, and they pay it in fees, so it's fees.
I don't think we've ever supplemented it with state general funds, to my knowledge, just being clear about that. Good, thank you. Appreciate the information. Thank you, Mr.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I make a motion we accept the 22-23 budgets as recommended by the subcommittee. Second by Senator Clays. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we will have the Corrections and Public Safety Subcommittee reports. First, we will have the Kansas Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training. The agency estimates revised expenditures of $917,379, all from special revenue funds for fiscal year 2022, which is an increase of $44,563 above the 2022 approved amount. The increase is attributed to an increased salaries and wages expenditures to allow for a 2-month period of overlap for the previous executive director to train the newly hired executive director. The increase is also due to the agency's enhancement request to replace a vehicle used by the employee travel and evidence transport. The increase is partially offset by decreased reimbursements of municipalities for law enforcement training due to declined revenue to the local law enforcement training reimbursement fund. The revised estimates include 6 FTE positions, which is an increase of 1 FTE position above the approved number. The additional FTE position is a result of converting a part-time investigator position to a full-time position. The governor concurs and the subcommittee concurs with the governor. Questions on 2022? Move on to 2023. The agency requests $889,326 all special revenue funds for fiscal year 2023. This is an all funds decrease of $28,053 above the 22 revised estimates. The decrease is attributed to decreased salaries and wages expenditures related to the transition of executive director that occurred in 2022, but do not occur in 2023, and a decrease expenditures for the purchase of computer equipment. The decrease is partially offset by increased expenditures for data storage service and attorney fees for legal consultation. In addition, the agency submits an enhanced request for $25,000 to replace a vehicle. The request includes 6 FTE positions, which is unchanged from 2022. The governor concurs, subcommittee concurs with the governor. Any questions on 23? Seeing none, I make a motion we accept 2022 and 2023. Seconded by Senator Clays. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Next, we will have the Kansas Sentencing Commission. The agency estimate revised expenditures of $13.6 million, including $3.6 million SGF in fiscal year 2022. This is an all funds decrease of $137,488 and an SGF increase of $14,984 from the 2022 approved amount. The decrease is attributed to decreased expenditures for the 2003 Senate Bill 123 Substance Abuse Treatment Program, which experienced lower admission due to the court delays and resulting in results from the COVID-19 pandemic. The decrease is partially offset by the agency's supplemental request of $17,605 for the initial phase of the 2-year salary adjustment plan. The decrease is also partially offset by increased expenditures for the implementation of the 2021 HB 2026, which allows substance abuse treatment for drug offenders on diversion. The agency revised estimate includes 14 FTE positions, which is an increase of 0.025 FTE positions above the 2022 approved amount. The FTE increases is due to Senate Bill 123 program director transitioning from part-time to full-time. The governor's recommendation. The governor recommends expenditures of $9.8 million, including $9.8 million SGF in fiscal year 2022. This is an SGF decrease of $3.8 million below the agency's 2022 revised estimates. The recommendation includes a lapse of $3.8 million from Senate Bill 123 program, which is the amount reapportionment from the 2021 fiscal year. The recommendation does not include funding for the initial phase of the agency's salary adjustment plan. However, funding for the final phase of fiscal year 2023 is recommended with modifications. The recommendation includes 14 FTE positions, which is unchanged from the agency's 2022 revised estimate. The subcommittee concurred with the governor's recommendation for 2022. Are there questions on 2022? Seeing none, we'll move to 2023. Agency requests $11.7 million, including $10.6 million SGF. This is an all funds decrease of $2.9 million and an SGF decrease of $2.9 million, below the 2022 revised estimates. The decrease is attributed to decreased expenditures for Senate Bill 123 program, which is primarily due to SGF reappropriations available in fiscal 2022 that are not available for fiscal year 2023. The decrease is partially offset by the agency's two enhancement requests, which includes the final phase of a 2-year salary adjustment plan, $91,801, and expenditures to sustain implementation of the 2021 House Bill 2026, which is $764,293. The agency request includes 14 FTE positions, which is unchanged from 2022. The governor recommends expenditures of $9.9 million, including $9.9 million SGF for fiscal year 2023. This is an SGF decrease of $764,293, below the agency's fiscal year 2023 request. The recommendation does not include additional funds to sustain implementation of House Bill 2026. The recommendation does include funding for the agency's salary adjustment plan, but implements the plan in 1 year rather than 2 years, and it excludes the executive director from the pay plan. The recommendation includes 14 FTE positions, which is unchanged from the 2022 request. The Senate subcommittee concurs with the governor's recommendation. Any questions on 2023? Seeing none, I'll make a motion. We accept the 2022 and 2023 Kansas Sentencing Commission budget. Second by Senator Clays. Questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Committee, that concludes our work today, so thank you. Appreciate it. Any other questions? Did you have a question? Oh, okay. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you.